In today's video, as promised in the most recent video, we're going to go through some condo prices now that we have condo prices in full as of May 2022. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. As always, back with another video for you guys here today. As always, you can find my contact information in the description box and on the screen with regards to my Gmail, my office, and where you can find me on TikTok and Instagram as well. Feel free to get in touch with me with any questions you may have with regards to topics covered in this video or covered in previous videos. And if you want to do a little bit of your own due diligence and your homework before you get in touch with me, as always, you're welcome to just Google my name, go through my Google reviews and find my Google reviews so you know what type of person you would be getting into contact with. Anyways, enough of all that self-promotion. Let's get to the point of today's video, which, as I said off the bat, is going to be condo prices. So let's start with this general chart we have here that I made in terms of the bar graph, where we see the average sold prices for condo types since February. Now, why since February and not January? Well, because for most property types, as we have gone through in the past and overall in the Toronto/GTA real estate market, as I've established in other videos, February is the month that we can point to as peak market conditions for GTA and Toronto real estate overall. And off the bat, what's most intriguing about this graph is the fact that as of May 2022, we see the gap between the city of Toronto and York region lessen. Meaning in terms of where we're coming from April, where in both regions prices were lower than March and then lower than February. But since April, prices have actually increased in York region. So month over month, prices in York region, as you can see from this bar graph, went from $759,000 to $780,000. Whereas with the city of Toronto, as designated by the red bar, we see that prices dropped from $820,000 in April to $793,000. So the gap as of May is only $13,000. And for those who are subscribed to my newsletter, I send this out in my newsletter, and people asked me, why is it the case that York region is the only area and only in May where we see an increase? And you know what? I can pretend to come up with certain answers as to why that is. I will not do that. All I can say is, as of May 2022, I have seen on the behalf of buyers and sellers much more interest in York region. Now, my experience, this is based upon my experience as a real estate agent working for buyers and sellers, is not going to be indicative and is not scientific because I'm just one person. But I can surely say that I did see an uptick in interest in York region for condos in May of 2022. Now, what has spearheaded the increase in average sold price in York region overall into May 2022 from April was two municipalities, Vaughan and to a larger extent Markham. We will get to those numbers a bit later. So on the qualitative side, as I said, I've seen more interest in York region. In the quantitative side, I can only say that the two municipalities I just mentioned have caused York region averages to go up. But as to a deeper sense of why is there more sudden interest in York region, I'm not going to pretend to know that answer. Furthermore, as to why the city of Toronto has dropped, my theory here is it has to actually do with an uptick in rental demand in the city of Toronto for work purposes. This uptick in rental demand is spearheaded by two more secondary trends. First and foremost, there is a continuous return to the city, but this continuous return to the city is in combination with increase in interest rates, which is causing some people to have affordability issues. Not so much for detached freehold prices as we went through in previous videos, because people who are typically in the market for a detached freehold won't be as impacted by a couple of basis point increases, whereas people who were typically in the market for an average condo will be more impacted by increase in rates. So I'm not saying, once again, this is a scientific theory. It's impossible to test this theory out, but having my ear to the ground and trying to take the temperature of the room, for a lack of a better word, this is what my what I theorize. Furthermore, it's just simply the case that prices are just down overall, right? Whether we're looking at semis, townhomes, detached, overall, all property types, that's just simply the case. And that is going to be the case with condos as well. Now, the city of Toronto, unlike other areas, actually peaked in March with regards to condos, whereas most other property types and most other categories, the peak was really in February. In March, it was more so in the city of Toronto. Now, let's focus a little bit more on particularly the city of Toronto and break it down. Toronto West, Toronto Central, Toronto East, C1 and C8. C1 and C8 being the two main municipalities of what we consider the downtown core to be. Of course, there are portions of C2 that are downtown as well, but when people think of downtown Toronto, often it's just C1 and C8. And as always, if you're a little bit confused as to what these codes refer to, there is a link into the TREP maps in the description box. Go open that link, toggle in the corner of the screen, municipalities. You should see the specifics of the districting of what C1, C8, and all of the C's indicate. Now here what we see is that from the beginning of the timeline we have chosen for this exercise, from February to the date of recording of this video, which is obviously June 5th, we see what performed the best in the beginning from February to March was Toronto West, Toronto Central, and then downtown, C1 and C8. C1 and C8 saw increases, the biggest increases from February to March. C1 at 6% increase in average sold prices from February to March, and C8 at an increase of 7% in average sold prices. And if we are to harken back to the earlier graph, that's why we see in the earlier bar graph, the state of Toronto actually improved right into March. Nonetheless, from March to April, everything started to decline slightly, with the exception of, once again, Toronto Central and Toronto East actually, where in both cases, Toronto Central and Toronto East, they kind of held water, right? Because it was a very minor increase, but nonetheless, when it's dealing with averages, anything within $1,000 to $3,000, either where it dip or increase, we can actually just chalk it up to being dead even, right? Because one transaction goes another way, one seller sells at one price and a buyer overpays for a certain property. Really, the averages can be really thrown up. Well, now into May 2022, everything is pretty much down, with the sole exception of Toronto East, where Toronto East saw a tempered increase from $718,000 in April of 2022 to now in May of 2022 to $737,000. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to, harkening back to the first graph as well, is Toronto East is up from April to May here. In the first graph, Markham was up. What do these areas have in common? Well, there's a lot of differences, but one thing they definitely have in common is they both reside on the east portions of the GTA. Toronto East obviously being Toronto East, and Markham being the east portions of York Region. So there's no doubt that from April to May, the eastern half of York Region and the eastern half of Toronto, basically the east side of the GTA, not going as far as Durham, obviously, because we're not looking at Durham numbers here, and I don't have those numbers, to be very frank with you, as of recording of this video. But within the eastern central half of the GTA, we can actually say that we see substantial uptick in demand, and as a result, substantial uptick in prices. I don't make much of this, to be very frank with you, because it's impossible to really make much of it for a 1 month sample size, right? If this was a continuous trend that was occurring for many months on end, if we still see a uptick in the east side of the GTA going forward to September, October, while other areas are struggling or holding water, then yes, we can investigate a little bit more in depth. But for just a 1 month sample size, I'm not sure what to make of it, or if there's anything to make of in the first place. Now, getting into York Region a little bit more in depth, here we see what I was referring to earlier, which was Markham being up. The increase Richmond Hill saw from April to May is mainly here due to Vaughan holding water, increasing a marginal amount, but really truly Markham really pushing up the prices to the tune of almost 10%. I mean, Markham condos went from $745,000 now towards $819,000. Vaughan saw a more mild-mannered increase, going from $776,000 to $791,000. And Richmond Hill, although in the negatives once again, barely so we'll just chalk it up to it pretty much consistent, holding water, break even from last month. So as always, we'll keep a close eye on the condo market, and condo investing will obviously be the sole option for a lot of people who can't afford freehold investing, especially freehold where you have the upstairs and downstairs separate. If your budget is maximally $800 or $750, condos are still, one of the more decent options for you. Nonetheless, going forward, it's going to be a little tricky. Anyways, we're going to have a lot more videos coming up. As always, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate. Go vote on the poll on my channel. It seems like the next edition of the condo review is going to be 88 Scott, because it has 50% of the vote. So look forward to that coming out soon as well. As always, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.